Hey everyone, Jamie here from TechnicalCafe.com. Welcome to your 19th HTML tutorial. In the last tutorial we talked about creating tables and how we can use them to organize and display data within our web pages in HTML. So in this tutorial I figured we're going to talk about a little bit more about how to create tables and discuss a couple more things that we can do within the table. So in the last tutorial we created a table that was 3 columns tall by 3 rows deep. So what we have here is the code for the table. This is basically where we left off last time. And this is the actual table that we created last time. So we just have some text up here saying table, kind of just like we did in a couple previous tutorials, just to say what it's all about. And here's the table. So these are our 3 rows right here. And going down or vertical, we have our 3 columns. So if you didn't watch the last tutorial or you just need a little refresher, what we have here is the code for the table. So to start a table, like you would start forms or you would start a list, you basically begin with outlining it, saying we have our table, and then we close off the table here. So anything between these two tags, these two table tags, is where we're going to put our rows and columns for our table. So within this tag we have table row, and here are our 3 rows. So this row right here corresponds to the first row, the row 1, and the second one corresponds to row 2, and the same for the third one. So within each row we have our 3 columns. So this column right here corresponds to this spot right here. So this is row 1, so this column is within the first row, and it's the first column we have within that row, so it's row 1, column 1. So let's say we want to go row 1, column 2, it's the second column that we have within our TR tag here. And just a quick reminder that table row is TR and table column is not TC. It's like you might expect, it's actually TD. And now I'm not sure why that is, but it's just a naming convention I guess you're going to have to get used to, because that's the way that we create tables in HTML. So just something you're going to have to memorize, I guess. So here we have our 3 columns, and each column has 3 rows. So this is our table that we've created. So let's create another table. Like in the previous tutorial I had a table that listed food items, their price, and how many of them were the quantity that we're going to be getting. So let's go ahead and create that. I will actually add a little paragraph spacing here. And I put that in here, so it technically wasn't the same code as the last tutorial, but in the last tutorial I didn't have a space between this and the table, but I just added that in with a paragraph spacing to make it look a little nicer. So let's just save that, come over and take a look, and we'll come over here now and start creating our table. So we'll say food items, we'll save that, come over here and refresh, and now we have food items. Or we could say food list. It's a little bit better, I think. So we'll create a paragraph space between that to make it look a little bit better when we put our table in. And let's actually begin the table now. So we'll say table, and just like in this previous table here, we're going to add in some rows and columns here. So what we're going to do is we're going to indent just to make it look a little nicer, and we'll say TR for our first row. And anything in between these 2 table row tags is going to be the table column. So we'll just space that down and indent one more time. So if you remember, we save and refresh, you'll notice that we have essentially no table because there's no data and there's no border between the table here. So let's just go ahead right now and add a table column. So we'll say TD. Remember, it's not TC. And again, I have no idea why. So though it is interesting to wonder why, but let's go ahead and enter in our placeholder text. So we'll say R1C1 for row 1, column 1. We'll add another column. And we'll do the same thing, R1C2, and come over here, TD, and we'll say row 1, column 3. So let's just come over here, refresh, and take a look. And you'll notice that now we have our 3 columns. It looks a little messy because there's no border around the table yet, but we'll add that in soon. But here's our 3 columns. So let's come over here now and add our border. So just like adding a border to, or changing the color of font or something, we'll add an attribute saying border equals, and then some quotation marks. And remember, in HTML it isn't so important to add the quotation marks, but in other languages like JavaScript, Java, PHP, it's kind of important to have them. So we'll just start doing that here. So we'll say 1 pixel for the border, and we'll save that. And here's our table. It's only 1 by 3, but let's just go ahead and add some more. So basically, for the sake of time, we'll copy this, we'll come over here, and we'll paste it, and we'll do the same thing. And one more time. So now that we have a table that is 1, 2, 3, 4 rows deep by 3 columns wide. So we'll save that, come over here and take a look, and you'll see our table. So 4 columns, or 4 rows rather, down, then 3 columns wide. So what we're going to do here, like in the previous tutorial, you saw that we had some bold text that said food or item, price, and quantity. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm actually going to show you 2 different ways we can do that. So in the first column in row 1, what we're going to say is we're going to say food item. Or we can say food item, that works. We'll say price, and we'll say quantity. So let's come over here and refresh, and you'll notice that we have our food item, price, and quantity. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make them bold, because these are kind of like a header for the table. So there's 2 ways we can do that. We can either use our bold tags, which is actually what I did in the first tutorial, but I went over to the W3 Schools table attribute page here, or tag page rather, and I checked out some of the more attributes that I didn't know about for tables, and so we're going to use something that I learned about here. So instead of using bold, we can actually use a whole different tag altogether, which is TH for the first column, and it's set up just like a table column tag, so like a TD tag, other than the fact that it turns the text you're using into a header. So it still creates a new column, but we'll just say food, or we'll just say item, and we'll save that, and we'll refresh, and you'll see that we have our item here is bold. So it's basically just a way to create bold without having to use the extra bold tag. So I will put food back in. Okay, so we'll save that, come over here, refresh, and that's that. So we have our food item, and we're just going to change the tag type for these 2 as well. So what we're going to say is put that as an H, and we'll do the same thing for this. So we have table header, and again, it's just a way to kind of avoid having to type in an extra bold tag, kind of save some time, especially if you have a quite a large table or something. So we'll come over and refresh, and now you notice that we have a nice bold header here. So let's start inserting in our information for the table. So we're going to say for the first one, we'll say bread, and we'll say the price of bread, since the price is the second row, second column, which is right in the middle here, right in the middle here rather. And we're going to say bread cost $2, and we'll say that we want 1 loaf of bread. So we'll save that, come over here and refresh, and here's our first thing here. So we have bread, $2.01. Let's do that a couple more times. We'll say for the third column, first row, we'll say milk. We'll say $4 for a gallon of milk, and we'll say we want 2 gallons of milk. And same for here, we'll say juice. We'll say $2.50 for a bottle of juice, and we'll say we want to buy 4 of them. So let's come over here and refresh. You'll notice that now we have our table set up here for our food items. So right here we can actually use the center tag if we wanted to put everything in the center. So just it would move it over. So for juice, for example, would say center. Save that, come over here and refresh, and juice would be in the center. And you can do this for basically all of these, just to make it a little bit easier to read, make it a little bit nicer. But for the sake of saving time, we're going to kind of omit that step, and I'm going to show you guys how to change a couple attributes within the table here. So let's come up here to the top where we have our border, and there's a couple of things you can actually do within the table to make it more customizable, essentially. So similar to how we can add a border, we can also add a background to our table using the BG color tag. You can remember this from the background page tutorial. So we can add in something like, let's say, we want to make a black table. We can say black, and we can come over here to our table, and we can make the whole table black. We can also use hex codes. So let's say we want to use, I think that color from the tutorial was 99CCFF. You can save that, come over here and refresh. We have a nice bluish color here for our table. So you can change the background color doing that. I believe you can also change the background image. So let's say background equals, and we'll just say picture.jpg because I have a picture saved in the same directory, which is my desktop. We can also use this method, basically specifying the folder it's in. We can refresh, and you'll notice that this is actually the picture. The table's not big enough, but this is the picture that I took of when I was at school. So this is the sky in the picture. So we can do that, and there's a couple other things we can do, which I actually learned just before this tutorial from the W3 Schools website, which is actually changing the cell spacing on the table, which basically means we're going to change the width between the cells. So we're going to basically space out the cells from the tutorial, from the table rather. I'm trying to refresh and get rid of this here. I didn't save, that's why. So There we go. So for example, another attribute, the cell spacing equals, then your quotation marks. Remember those are kind of important in other languages, so it's just a good practice to get them on, start using them now. So cell spacing, we can say, for example, 5 pixels, and what that's going to do is it's basically going to space out the space between this cell and this cell. So basically every cell is going to have 5 pixels of space between it, and this can be useful for a variety of different things. So we'll just refresh, and you notice that now we have our cells are spaced a little bit more apart. A more extreme example of that would be if we just saved it and did 10 pixels. We have a little bit more space, and I'm sure you can figure out a bunch of uses for that if you wanted to. So the next thing is cell padding, and I also learned this from W3 Schools. It's a great resource if you're ever interested in learning a couple attributes or some extra tags or something like that. And they also have a bunch of other tutorials too, so feel free to check them out. So cell padding, what that is that allows you to basically specify the space between the text in a particular cell in the table, in the walls of the cell basically. So what we're going to do here is we'll say cell padding equals 10 pixels. We can save that and come over here. And you'll notice that here we have our table has 10 pixels of text between it. So there's 10 pixels from the top, left, bottom, and right on each of these, though it does look a little bit more because these aren't centered. And they're also a bit smaller than these. So we can basically do that to make our table bigger. We can also use, this can be useful if you just want to space it out, or maybe you're going to put images within the table or some links or something, and you want the table to be spaced out. You can do it that way. Another quick thing that we can do for the table is we can change its width. And we can use percents for a bunch of these tags, attributes rather. We can actually use percents. And on this link right here, I'll link it up in the description of the video. It tells you what you're allowed to use. So it tells you if you're allowed to use percentages, pixels, stuff like that. A lot of them do allow other values within the attributes. So I'll link that up in the description there. So what we have here is this with our cell padding. So let's come over here and take a look at our width. So let's say we change the width of the table. Basically the table going from left to right horizontally to, let's say, 200 pixels. We'll save that and we'll refresh. You'll notice that it's a little bit smaller, so we'll come over here and we'll change it to 1000 pixels. And now you notice that our table is a lot larger, and this might be good if you're laying out a table, so you're using it for a website layout or something like that. But for our purposes it's not so good, so we'll just delete it from the page entirely. And our last attribute is height, and we'll say that we want the table to be 500 pixels high. So we'll save this and refresh, and you'll notice that our table is now a little bit higher. So this is basically just some attributes that you can go about using to make your tables better, or enhance them, or just to make them fit the needs of the use that you're going to be using them for. And like I said, we can actually use tables to lay out a website. So for example, we could have a table with a couple rows this way, and we can have the height fit the whole page, or use a percentage to can make the height conform to a page, and we can include certain stuff like this. Though this might not be the recommended way. The recommended way of laying out web pages might be now using CSS and divs, but for the time being you could definitely use this. It would definitely work, but just like I said before, CSS is probably the more popular way of doing it nowadays. And we can also learn that from W3 Schools too, if you want to check them out. So this is basically how you can go about using tables within your web pages and stuff like that. You can include other things within the table. So for example, let's say I wanted to replace the number 4 in juice with an image. So we can say image src, or source rather, equals, I'm looking to say picture.jpg. So tables can be really useful. And like I said before, especially for like laying out a website, for right now you wanted to try to do that, just change the dimensions of the table and the rows and such, maybe take off the border, and you could essentially lay the website out using a table. So we'll save that, come over here and take a look. And you'll notice that we do have our image within the table, though it did really stretch it, so it's just something that you're going to have to want to pay attention to if you're going to be doing this. Maybe change the dimensions of the picture as well. So we'll say height equals, equals 100 pixels, and width equals 100 pixels. So we'll save that, come over here and take a look. And now you notice that our picture fits within the table just has some spacing around it, and the picture is definitely distorted. But this is how you can go about using some attributes of tables to change them around, make them look nicer, make them look the way you want them to look rather than just looking like the default table. If you like this tutorial, please definitely feel free to check out w3schools.org, or .com rather, w3schools.com first off, because this website gave me some ideas for attributes that we can use within this tutorial. I actually checked it out after making the last tutorial to see some more attributes that we could use. So feel free to check that out, and also feel free to subscribe if you like these videos and want to see some more. As always, questions, comments, suggestions are welcome. You can leave them below in the comments section, or you can send them to me on Twitter, either at Technical Cafe or at JamieMCG. Also, feel free to use the comment or contact us form on Technical Cafe. I think it just says contact actually, where you can send an email, and that'll go to my Technical Cafe email account, and I'll respond to you with whatever questions you might have. So, thanks for watching, and have a great day.